So you had your plea hearing. I don't know what they call it. The plea hearing.
No, I had a settlement conference.
So we're going to hear about the settlement conference. Let's hear how this goes.
Okay.
And so a settlement conference, like nothing happens in the courtroom.
Yeah.
The prosecution, the defense, to come to the courthouse and try and reach an agreement.
Okay.
We didn't reach an agreement, but we're really damn close.
You're really close.
And yeah, my that's why we scheduled another one. My next conference is on the 17th. Most likely we'll have a deal worked out at that point.
Okay.
I mean, you never want to say anything, and I don't want to say like what it is, but long story short, it's really, really favorable. It's really reasonable. And this is the thing that's pissed me off about this whole situation. If I could comment on my own case, it would be a great object lesson in where the difference between the book application of the law meets the practical application of the law.
Right.
Because there's a whole bunch of legal issues that are unresolved on my side and on the prosecution side that would be beneficial for either of us. Like, I have a bunch of evidentiary issues that I could hammer them with. That would cost a fortune and be a bunch of work on both sides. And it could be enough to honestly just flat out win my case. But it also could not. It's a roll of the dice. So instead, you get down to this thing and people are like, well, why didn't you do this? Like, well, you don't just go to the prosecution and say, well, this didn't happen. And them go, oh, our bad. Sorry. Yeah. Like, you have to do it through the court procedure. So rather than do that, the practical application is, well, let's figure out how to make a deal that works where you recognize that there's punishment for whatever you did.
I mean, it sounds like buying a used car. Like,
I mean, yeah, that's kind of how pleas work. I think I've been pretty clear about that the whole time. There's horse trading. I mean, I don't know what he means by favorable. Like, he's already got a presumption of like probation. Like, it's already pretty good just based on the fact like of all that stuff. So I'm not sure how much more favorable it gets, but okay. And I will say, Dick's going to say it's like buying a used car. It's 100% like buying a fucking used car. That part is correct. It's like buying a fucking used car. It is fucking ridiculous at times.
So rather than do that, the practical application is, well, let's figure out how to make a deal that works where you recognize that there's punishment for whatever you did.
I mean, it sounds like buying a used car. Like, at some point, it stops sounding like justice at all, and it just sounds like, hey, what can we do to make you have to be embarrassed?
The easiest way out of this?
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. Okay. What are we doing here? What is the purpose of this fiasco?
For a used car.
If you're looking for justice, I want you to forget everything else.
Yeah.
And realize
looking for big
that when we were talking, when people wanted to film my pretrial motions, right? Which is against the rules unless the judge permits it. And we said, you know what? We don't see the proper case for a special exception to the rules. So just apply the rule, no filming allowed of the pretrial stuff. The prosecution did not object to our position. Our position said, look, we
lost
the child endangerment charge and all this stuff.
Right.
The prosecution wrote a really interesting letter to the court. And that letter said, there are no victims in this crime.
That's because the victim, it's not a victim when it comes to child endangerment. You don't have to have them testify. Like, if you get a DUI and there's kids in the car, that's child endangering. That's child endangerment. You don't have to have the come in and testify to anything. It could be a baby. That baby's not going to be able to testify. Did you get a DUI? Yes. Were you in a car? Yes. Was there a baby in your car? Yes. A child you're in charge of? Yes. Child endangerment. Bam. Like the kids who are in the house with drugs. That's all it takes. I don't think Nick gets that, but okay. Like, let's see.
And we expect no children to be required to testify, which is the prosecution saying not only are there no victims, but that...
And I mean, here's the thing. You know, maybe Nick is right. The problem is he's been wrong on every other fucking thing. I don't know if it's true. I can't rely on him because he's not a reliable narrator. And based on the work him and his attorneys put together, I can't trust his recitation of facts. And from what the research is out there, like this is a nonsense argument. I just, like that's the thing. Like you don't need them to show that. Like there's no need for the child to testify because the kid doesn't have to. Like I said, imagine it's a baby. Well, your baby can't testify. It doesn't mean the charge goes away.
The children are also not victims because they charged me with child endangerment. What they found in the family law case, there wasn't any endangerment.
It's just
the
about the goddamn
were
cocaine.
never in danger of
Yeah.
The kids, what they found when they interviewed our children and observed them, they found that all of our children are brilliant, and they are, and they're creative, and they have a life which we have built for them, which allows them to explore whatever hobbies or passions that they have. Like we're very fortunate to be able to do that. Like that's great. And then they also found that the kids have an exceptionally strong bond with us, and that the best thing for them was to be reunited with us. All they needed to do was make sure there weren't going to be intoxicants around the children. Once they were convinced there weren't going to be any illegal substances around the kids, they were back in our home. They've been back in our home since August. And like entirely, we had some supervised stuff before then, but it was all they wanted was we had to display 60 days of sobriety through tests. And the first test that we had that showed sobriety was, I think for me was like, because I wasn't restricted from alcohol and they didn't tell me don't drink. So my last drink was on June.
I still think that's moronic that he thought he could drink. Like, did you not talk to your lawyers? I know you claim they're malpractice factories, but the idea you think you could run around and drink and be a dip, like that's makes no sense at all. No sense at all. Especially for him, because he's not like, if he was some like 70 IQ rum bum, okay, but he's not.
Fifth. But my first clean test then, clean of alcohol, was June 14th.
I don't think I love my kid that much.
And
well, if I had just quit alcohol, I'd die. Yeah,
I'd shrivel up.
Yeah. No, the
it's
withdrawal
honestly
would give me,
like it sounds really tough, but if the alternative is like your life is fucked forever and they take your children away, like you just don't. You go, okay, well, I just can't drink. Okay, it's not that big of a deal. It sucks from time to time, but you get over it real quick.
Yeah, okay.
So my last drink was on June 5th. My first clean test was on June 14th. So what they needed was 60 days of completely abstinent testing from that June 14th. And once we had that, kids were back in our home with us. Yeah. And that's where they wanted to be. They just needed to make sure that, like, look, they made me go to a recovery program, not rehab, but an outpatient recovery. And I'm in there with a bunch of meth addicts. And, like, they were nice enough guys or whatever, but these guys can't go to a grocery store without buying meth. And I'm sitting there going, I'm like,
what grocery stores are those?
I'm like, these guys are of such a different category of addiction than, like, I'm like, I like to party, but I don't need meth to survive. These guys need meth to get through a day. And you're like, holy shit. And so you go through and you're like, this is not having drugs or alcohol around is easy. Most people do it all the time. Like most people don't have drugs in their house, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, and so people are like, oh, can you do that? It's like, well, yeah. It's not, you're doing it now. I think I can manage.
You weren't doing it though. You literally looked like a skeleton, man. Like you weren't doing it. So, like, yes, maybe you could do it now, but you also demonstrated like you were going to disappear into it.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, I like to do some things. I like to party and have a good time. That's the extent of it. But if you have to give that up or they take your kids, you just give that up. Like, it's
people just don't like that.
There's other shit to do in the world.
You like to have a good time? Yeah. How dare you?